ADHD brains will literally generate intrusive thoughts for fun when they get bored because they're so bored and they would rather be terrified than bored? What the fuck? I know, right? You are neurodivergent and constantly exhausted, yet never actually get what you need to get done every day done. If there's one thing I have, it's solutions. Okay, let's talk about spoon theory, because people think it's a metaphor, like just a metaphor, and it's not. Spoon theory, originally from Christine Miserandio, is basically a way to explain you wake up with a finite energy budget and every task is a withdrawal. Your body actually runs on a budget. You do not have infinite resources. Cells run on ATP, which is a chemical form of spendable energy. ATP is made mostly by your mitochondria. And if you went to school in the last 30 years, you just awakened like a sleeper agent to say, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I did it too. But yeah, they make power. So if you have a chronic illness, fatigue disorder, or pain condition, or even just a neurodivergent nervous system that runs really hot like mine, your supply chain is already fucked up. The same task costs you more. It's a logistics issue. Remember that prefrontal cortex I was talking about earlier, who's always on a smoke break? The rest of your brain is basically a Barnes & Noble staffed by a teenage girl who was pointed to a 4-foot-tall pile of books and told to figure it out, while her coworker had to bring in her toddler to work, and he's screaming because he can't have a frappinated cappuccino from the unmanned Starbucks that takes up half the store, and everybody's crying and nobody's happy, and all the people are in line and there's nobody to check them out because the teenager is already stacking the books and the mom is with the toddler and nobody is doing their job and everybody is upset. That's your brain. Researchers have found energy and metabolism differences in conditions like ME and CFS, which explains why people crash so hard after they exert themselves even the smallest amount. Then we have your nervous system. Your body is constantly asking one question. Are we safe enough to plan and socialize, or do we need to survive? Your brain basically thinks you're in like a horror movie of some kind, and it responds as such. When your stress system activates, that's your sympathetic nervous system and your HPA axis, by the way, your body reallocates resources. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles planning, memory, sequencing, and impulse control, gets less blood flow and support. Meanwhile, your amygdala clocks in for its shift at the Barnes & Noble like, hi, I'm running the company now. And by the way, your amygdala is an asshole. Studies show differences in cortisol responses and stress regulation. So you're burning spoons just staying regulated before you've even done anything productive, which is incredibly unfair, but you know. Now let's talk about sensory processing, because this one gets me. Your brain is literally processing sensory input differently. So every second in a grocery store is a hellish cacophony of fluorescent lights, beeping machines, cold air, strangers, smells, textures, background music, cart squeaking. I'm gonna stop talking about this because it's upsetting me. Your brain is actively filtering all of that. Filtering is work. Work costs energy. You walk in with 5 spoons and you walk out with 2. Now, research literally links masking to burnout and stress, then adds sensory filtering, social decoding, reading subtext, that. If your baseline arousal is higher or your recovery is slower, your daily energy tax goes up. Life is to the gills with hidden taxes neurotypical people never pay, basically. There's a real thing called cognitive switching cost. It's one of the most replicated findings in psychology. Every time you change task, your brain has to drop the old goal, load a new rule, suppress the previous one, and update working memory. That reconfiguration requires energy, glucose metabolism. So when you do a ton of small things, you switch, which is more exhausting than doing one big task, actually, especially for ADHD brains. ADHD is associated with differences in executive function, including set shifting and cognitive flexibility. Studies show ADHD brains often have higher switching costs, meaning it takes more effort to reorient, refocus, and suppress the last task than just continuing the current task. This is why in my deck, you cannot break big spoons into tiny ones. You don't get to turn one medium task into 12 micro tasks and pretend it's easier, because it's not. The rule exists to protect you from burnout. I cannot tell you exactly how many calories you burn just switching tabs in your brain, but I can tell you that your brain is tired. I calls them spells because it's always easier when it's in some sort of fun mechanic. And it basically forces you to adjust your baseline with honesty instead of the sort of self-sabotaging optimism we tend to put into these kinds of things. Some days you have silver ladles and some days you have chipped teaspoons. And that is the mockery of creation that lives in the mind of every autistic person. Phone calls cost more, grocery stores cost more, eye contact costs more. The deck lets you assign real costs to those things and practice interoception, which is your ability to notice internal body signals. ADHD brains have lower dopamine baselines, and dopamine is involved in motivation and reward prediction. That's why starting a task is hard, and games are a better way to get your brain to function than a regular to-do list. I actually use a science-backed mechanism to trick your brain into caring, like, at all. And also because it's fun and I refuse to live a joyless life for productivity. Available now on Shopify and Etsy, and proceeds support my nonprofit at the local middle school that launches in the morning. I'm Alora and I make tools for us that nobody else will. Count your spoons.